Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. I am going to show you how to make a super simple homemade spaghetti sauce. Why would you want to make it homemade instead of buying it in a can? Well, because most of the stuff that you buy pre-made is full of a ton of preservatives and artificial stuff. Plus everything just tastes better homemade. So I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually 7, because I'm going to grab something here in the middle that I forgot to put over here. 7 ingredients, that's it. And it's so easy. You don't have to be like a pro or anything like that. And you're going to be so glad that you learned how to make this. So what you need to do for this, I have organic crushed tomatoes. So all that this is if you look at the ingredients, it's literally just organic tomatoes, sea salt, and organic basil. You don't have to buy it with basil. Normally, I would use fresh basil. However, my store was totally out of basil. So I just opted for getting the organic crushed tomatoes that already come with basil. So you're going to need this, olive oil. I have a yellow onion. I've already peeled it. This is a little bit of rosemary, salt and pepper, and then some portobello mushrooms. I was washing these and they were sitting over here, so I totally forgot to grab them. These are little baby portobello mushrooms. These are optional. You don't have to do this. You also could add in some red peppers, some carrots. Like, the whole thing with making things homemade is like you can really get as creative as you want and make it however you want. Step outside the box. Have fun with it. So to get started, I already peeled this onion. I will warn you, I don't chop things the way you're supposed to. I do it with what's easiest for me. So I'm going to chop up this onion into very small pieces. So I just like taking a chunk off the side. This is how I do it. I'm not saying it's right. Actually, I know it's not right because I will be putting this up on the channel soon. I was doing an interview with a James Beard award-winning chef. And the recipe she was cooking for this interview had onions in it. And when she started doing it, she was slicing down the middle. Then you do the fine lines without cutting the end. Then like baby chops. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm definitely not doing it right. But I don't really think it matters. I think what matters is if you're cooking for yourself, does it taste good? Are you having fun with it? And that's all that you need to know. All right, so that's all I'm going to chop this for. I like it kind of chunky. If you don't like your sauce chunky, chop it a little finer. So I'm going to set my stove top to about a medium heat. I'm going to put about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. That's the other funny thing is when this chef was doing the olive oil, she's like, just like a little bit of olive oil. And I was watching, I was like, every time somebody talks about just a little bit of olive oil, it's really not a little bit. It's like 2 to 3 tablespoons. What I just did is probably about 2 tablespoons. So I'm just going to swirl that around to coat the bottom of the pan so it's nice and glossy. I'm going to throw these onions in here. And then you're going to wait until it starts to kind of sizzle a little bit so the onions are starting to cook. So while these are going in, I'm going to grab a spoon. I'm going to stir these around. I'm going to let those onions get a lot of the flavor in there. I don't know what happened to my wooden spoon, so that's okay. We're going to use a plastic one because that's what's in the drawer. So you want those onions to be totally coated in the olive oil. We're just going to kind of move them around. And we're just going to wait until they start to sizzle. Okay, so these are starting to sizzle a little bit. One of the things that I'm going to add, you don't have to. Some people don't really love garlic. I love garlic. So I have 2 cloves here. I'm not going to add them in yet, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and chop them up a little bit because from a nutrition perspective, when you open up garlic, open up meaning like you allow oxygen to get to it, you have a lot of enzymes that start to be activated. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes before they're actually activated. Those enzymes and garlic are so good for digestion and gut health. So I have a little bit of this chopped up. I'm going to put this on the side when it's ready to go in. Okay, I don't know if you can hear this. This has a really nice sizzle to it. So now that that's nice and sizzled, I'm going to add in this whole can of crushed tomatoes. So you just pour it in. It's amazing like how easy a lot of the stuff that we buy is to make homemade. Like, it's really not that hard. And it's super convenient. So we're going to add that in there. We're going to stir this up. Keep it still on about medium heat. Stir this up nice. All the olive oil and the onions are going to cook in there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of salt. It's really up to you on this. Salt is going to enhance a lot of the flavors, especially with the tomatoes and the acidity. So I like just putting it in my hand. It's going to make about a teaspoon or so of salt and just popping that in there and then stirring it in. So if you can kind of see, it's about a teaspoon. A lot of people under-season their sauces because they're scared it's going to be too salty. Salt is one of those things, it brings out the flavor. So yes, I mean, if you go crazy and you're dumping like a tablespoon in there, it is going to be too much, but salt is good. All right, so another thing that I'm adding in here, we have rosemary. Like I said, if you have fresh basil, you could do fresh basil. I'm going to do a little bit of rosemary. So fresh rosemary, you kind of just pick off these little twigs. I'm going to chop them. Oh, I love the smell of fresh herbs. It just smells so good. Like, see, when you buy stuff already pre-made, you miss out on this whole process right here. So we have some fresh rosemary. You just have this little pile of all this. I'm just going to chop it so it's nice and fine. The easiest way to do this, because this isn't the greatest knife for this, but if you just keep bunching it up, watch your fingers because it is tiny. The bunch is tiny. And then, whoo, sauce is popping on me. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. All right. So nice and tiny. I probably could put a lid on that, but I'm not ready to do that yet. Once your rosemary is popped nice and tiny, I'm just going to sprinkle some of that in there. Oh, it looks so pretty. You got some green in there. And I'm going to give this a stir so all that flavor can soak into this. All right. Now I am going to chop some mushrooms and add that in there because I like mushrooms in my sauce. You don't have to. You could, if you have kids. This is also a great way to sneak in vegetables. Like I said, you could put in some spinach because spinach kind of like softens up and shrinks. You could put some red peppers. You could do like I'm doing with mushrooms. You could shred some carrots and put it in there. I mean, there's a lot of vegetables you could get away with that most people wouldn't even know that you're giving them a bunch of vegetables because they're just focused on like, hey, this is a really good spaghetti sauce. So I'm going to chop up a little bit more. It's up to you whether you want to make these mushrooms thick or thin. It's just a preference. Doesn't really matter. I'm doing it kind of medium. I like portobello over white. One, I just like the flavor of them a little bit better, but I think it just goes better with the sauce. Again, though, that's a total preference thing. So I just chopped up some of the mushrooms. I'm going to stir those in here too. This whole process only takes like 15, 20 minutes. So you could do all this, stick a lid on it, let it simmer and cook up some noodles or some protein, and you're good to go. All right, now I'm going to add in the garlic. Now that like some of those enzymes are activated, I'm going to sprinkle this in here. That flavor is really going to soak up in there. I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. Nothing crazy. I know it might look like I'm putting a lot in here. I'm not. There's just not a whole lot coming out. So some black pepper. I'm going to stir that. Oh man, it looks so good. And I am going to add just a tiny more salt. Just like that. All right, so now what you'll do, this lid does not fit perfectly, that's okay. You're gonna put a lid on it and you're gonna put it down to low because it's just gonna simmer, and you're gonna let all of those flavors, the mushrooms, the onions, the garlic, the olive oil, the salt, pepper, and rosemary, you're gonna let all those just kind of fuse together. I'd let it simmer for about 10 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Okay, we are back. The sauce has been simmering for about 10 minutes or so now. We're gonna check it out. Really quick, if you have not already, make sure you subscribe because I come out with recipes and content every single week like this that are super easy, that are really good. So just hit that little subscribe button. Okay, so the sauce is bubbling. It smells amazing. I wish you could smell this with me. The way you know if your sauce is done, if you put mushrooms in there, the mushrooms will start to look more cooked, but also all the ingredients have kind of a congruity to them. So like the oil's nice and integrated. The sauce thickens up a little bit when it simmers like that. One thing you want to make sure of is when you let this simmer, every few minutes, I give it a good stir to make sure the bottom of it doesn't burn. A lot of times if your heat is up too high, the bottom of the sauce will end up burning. So I was watching my timer up here on the microwave, and every few minutes I was just giving it a good stir, making sure everything is cooking evenly. So what I like to do now, the sauce looks so good. Oh wait, you can't see that. It's nice and chunky. You can see the steam coming off of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let this cool off a little bit, and then I put this in Tupperware containers. I put it in a few of them because you can freeze this and use it as like ready-made sauce in a couple weeks. I mean, it depends. I don't like freezing things longer than 30 days that are made fresh. So you can freeze this. Maybe you use a little bit of it for dinner tonight. Maybe you use some of it in like a couple weeks for like pizza. You can also use this as a pizza sauce. Forgot to mention that. Another really great way to use this is as just like a really light topping on some veggies, and then you can sprinkle some Parmesan cheese or some mozzarella cheese. It's really good. It's packed full of all kinds of vitamins and nutrients. So that's how you make a super simple homemade spaghetti sauce that is way better than the store-bought stuff. You can do it anytime. So be sure to check out some of the other videos. I've got more recipes for you. And until next time, see you later.